Hi, welcome again to Aging Gracefully with Julie Roca. Today in the studio, I want to have a discussion that I think a lot of people are very confused about. There are different things that we can do now to heal our bodies that maybe don't involve medications at all. And in a time when there's so many chemicals and things that are bombarding us every day and pharmaceuticals, and I think it's important to kind of go back to nature, kind of look at our body, see how our body is supposed to be operating, and maybe we can tweak some things without having to automatically go to a whole bunch of medications. And so I am bringing in my friend Cristina Eury today. Welcome, Cristina.
Thank you.
And Cristina, you do something that is very special. I think I had never heard of this until I met you, actually. So what is it that you do?
So I usually define myself as an acupressure therapist. Yeah, that's the simplest way usually to refer for people that are unfamiliar. If we lived out in California, I would say, I'm a Jin Shin Jyutsu practitioner.
And I would say, what?
Right.
Is that like jujitsu?
Right.
I would have no idea.
Exactly. So it is a Japanese style of highly refined acupressure.
Okay.
And so for simplicity's sake, being that we live here in Florida, I just say that I'm an acupressure specialist. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to go way back here to my ignorance at an early age, but I remember watching Star Trek and Spock.
Oh.
And he had those pressure points. So in my mind, when you're saying acupressure, I am thinking, my brothers and I tried it on each other, and you could grab the shoulder, and it did have an effect upon the body.
Sure.
It wasn't a good one.
No.
It wasn't pleasant.
Yeah. Right.
Is it something like that?
Yes and no. That's a great question. Yes, in the sense that by touching the body in specific ways, we can have or help invite the body into specific realms.
Yeah.
And usually for what I'm trying to do, it's about bringing the body into a parasympathetic state.
Okay.
So sympathetic state being the just ready and doing all the things, and the parasympathetic being in the rest state. And during that rest state is when our body is in that healing process. And so lots of pain is not part of my preference. Coming back to that point.
That was a bunch of kids trying to do stuff they saw on TV, but that is the
Sure.
only thing that I knew about with pressure points was that.
Yeah.
And then, then there's acupuncture.
Right.
And people talk about that a lot. In fact, I've had some people that are very near to me in my life that have experienced that have been through some really traumatic injuries or body misfunctions, I guess. And they have tried acupuncture, and it has helped. But I am not someone who wants to deal anything with needles if I don't have to. So explain the difference between
Sure.
what you do and acupuncture.
Yeah. So let's start with both Jin Shin Jyutsu, my modality, and acupuncture are based in traditional Chinese medicine, which many of us refer to as TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. So TCM has been around for like 5,000 years.
Great.
And I like to point out that a tradition like that wouldn't have stuck around if it didn't have an effect on the body.
Right.
Ayurvedic yoga, that kind of stuff is like 7,000 years. So much older, but they're both great traditions. So coming back to acupuncture versus acupressure, here in the state of Florida, an acupuncturist goes for a post-baccalaureate degree, usually 3 to 5 years. It's more or less a PhD kind of program.
Yeah, makes sense.
And they study herbs and all the very teeny tiny points that they have to work in with needling.
That's going to be super specific because they are tiny needles from what I understand.
Yes, they are tiny needles. They're very thin, but they have to be very specific. So for my tradition, I'm able to practice through a massage license.
Okay.
I actually started studying this before hand, and when I came back to the state, I grew up here in Gainesville. When we came back to the state of Florida, I was like, oh, I gotta become a massage therapist so that way I can practice this.
Right.
And I think the other point in terms of teeny tiny points as for an acupuncturist, for me, we have about a 3-inch diameter, or about the size of the palm.
Right.
And so
okay.
I don't have to be as specific. Another comparison that I heard another Jin Shin Jyutsu practitioner express was that we're all working with this river of energy within the body.
Yes.
This river of energy is what forms our structures, the organs, the bones, all of those kinds of things.
And keeps everything flowing.
It's all about the flow.
Yeah.
And so an acupuncturist, and in fact, when there's not good flow, we end up with pain and issues.
Right.
And
Blockage.
blockages, exactly, in that river of energy. And an acupuncturist is trying to get their needle in the very center of that river of energy. And Jin Shin Jyutsu practitioners work with the banks of the river of energy.
I love that description. I saw that in your explanation, and I was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah. So I don't have to be quite as specific.
Right.
And that means that I can more easily teach my clients some easy things that they can do, simplified things, when they're not coming to see me for deep work.
Okay. So when they're coming to see you, what does that look like?
Oh, yeah. I love to take my time with my clients. Usually on the calendar, it says 75-minute appointments for 60 minutes of body work. I allot about 90 minutes, actually.
You lie.
I do lie, because I'm a little bit of chatty. And also, it is about when someone comes into me, they're telling me the things that are going on for them.
Right, and
Not
you're
just-
listening.
And I'm listening and taking notes.
Yeah.
And as I'm listening to the things that they're describing that have been issues, whether it's physically or mentally, that informs the work that we'll do when I get them to the table. And so there's a little bit of that intake time. And then I bring them to my massage table clothed. It's a clothed modality, so it's a little bit more approachable.
Oh, okay.
And I do find that more men feel more comfortable. I have a higher, I think it's women going to massage therapists is about 90%, so only 10% men. And I find that in my practice, it's about 60-40.
Okay.
Because they don't have to get undressed. It's a little simpler and easier.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So on the table, on the massage table, I listen to my clients' wrists.
Yeah.
For just a quick minute, and sort of
Just with your ear or with the tool?
listen with my fingers. That's great.
Okay.
So I'm listening to them using my fingers, and I use Himalayan salt stones, carved Himalayan salt stones that have been warmed up, and I place them in key parts of the body. Usually then from there, I begin very quietly, for as chatty as I can be. Once the body work starts, I am not talking, because
you're listening.
I'm listening with my fingers to their body. And so my hands will be on different parts of their body, and I'm there for a little bit of time. And I've been described as gentle pressure, but I also say that it's fairly firm.
Okay.
So, for example, people that are ticklish with feet, like I've had multiple clients who are ticklish with their feet, but I can be there because I'm firm on that, and I'm not moving. I'm there still for a couple of minutes as I'm listening to what's going on in my hands.
And are you feeling the blood flow, or are you feeling the lymphatic system? What are you feeling? This is such a curiosity to me.
I'm listening to the energetic body.
Okay.
So it's not the blood flow, and it's not really the lymphatic, although plenty of clients, those that are a little more sensitive, had cancer or whatever, they'll notice that their lymphatic system has been adjusted. Like they feel the difference in their lymphatic system after a session. But no, I'm really listening to the energetic body and what I'm noticing in my fingers.
It's so crazy to me. Like, I can't even wrap my head around that.
I know.
And which is why I need to go to you and I need to send people to you, because I have about 10 people in my mind right now, because you not only deal with the physical realm. So I've heard of amazing stories. I had Elizabeth Haller in here earlier today, and I think she had a great story about how you helped her one time. One of my coworkers just went to see you, and she said not only did you affect her physically, but she said there were some emotional struggles that she was having that she said she can't wrap her head around even the change and what happened in her appointment. So she told me, she's like, if you can go see her before your session, which I only had a week, so I didn't have time, but I definitely am very excited about trying this out.
So sweet of her to mention that. Yeah.
She was wonderful. So,
the whole HIPAA thing, I'm so glad that she was able to tell you that story.
Because you can't really tell too much.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that is one of the things that I love about this particular modality, is that it is really gentle, but it is really working on the energetic realm. And some people call that like the spirit realm. And from there, it translates down into the mental realm, and from the mental realm into the physical realm. And so sometimes it can take a moment for it to really show up in our body, but that doesn't mean that it's not working through its process.
Right.
So yeah, I love that it can really help with anxiety. And actually my story comes from depression. So
tell me about that. What did bring you to this? Because this is so unique.
Yeah. So back in 2007, we were living in Phoenix, and I was really struggling mentally with my youngest was getting to be preschool age and what I was going to do, but I was also struggling physically, and I've been prone to headaches anyways, but also migraines. And so I was definitely dealing with a lot of depression and adrenal fatigue, so much adrenal fatigue that by 9 a.m. in the morning, I was like wanting to go back to
bed.
Sleep.
Oh, yeah.
And when your kids are like 3, 7, and 11, that's just not
possible.
No, you can't. I mean, my husband's very loving and generous, and he does so much, but it's just not fair.
Life with toddlers. And also, I don't know how it would happen with my toddlers. They were, Mommy!
Right.
Mommy!
Exactly.
That wasn't happening.
Yeah. So I was needing to find a different way. We were involved with Waldorf schools, and they're really big on parent education. They had somebody come in for a 3-hour little self-help workshop, and it was self-help, Jin Shin Jyutsu. And I came away from that class feeling amazing. Like, I had so much energy, and yet I was like, and I remember stomping on the ground. I feel so grounded. It was amazing how well I felt. It had unbound all the crimps in my energetic system, and I just knew from there. I'm like, okay. I was following the teacher out to the parking lot as she's trying to pack up, and I followed her multiple times, poor thing. And unfortunately, I lost track of her name and who she is, so I can't thank her. But yeah, that started me on the path. That was in October of 2007, and I was taking classes, professional level classes, by that spring. And
oh, wow. You jumped on it.
Yeah. And they were like, well, you take a class every year. I'm like, no, how about every 6 months? So amongst, I was also a preschool teacher at the time at the Waldorf school. And so I would take off time to go to the class and learn. And then I'd work on my kids. I think there's a picture of my youngest on the website, on my website, of her on the couch, me playing around with her. And a lot of what I did was mainly just work on myself.
Right.
Every day, multiple times a day. Just the little things that I teach my clients to do.
I was going to say, you teach your clients to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've done for my clients is create recordings, short recordings between 12 and 20 minutes. There's 6 of them. That the things that I was doing every day, that I had to look at the book and go, okay, then I created these recordings so that way it'd be easy for my clients to just plug it in, listen, follow directions, and they don't have to look at a book. They can just do that and be able to feel better mentally, physically, all of that.
Yeah. So you have one that I have done with you before in short sessions that you've done. And I asked you if we could share a little bit about that today.
Yeah,
So can you share?
so definitely. So one of the things that I love teaching people when I first meet them is to know that there are emotions and attitudes connected to our hands. So for our thumb, it's worry. For our index finger, it is fear. This one's usually the very easy one to know that it is anger. Yes.
That's why it just pops up
It pops up
automatically.
automatically. And then this one is about grief and sadness. And this is the trying to. The old word for it is pretense or efforting. And the simple technique is, it's just so easy. Literally just wrapping the one hand around. And I like to start with the left hand. And I prefer to sit back and close my eyes and just take a nice deep breath. And if I can do 35 more of those, even better. And then move to the next and move to the next. And in the middle of the night, if I wake up, I'll do this. If I'm traveling between time zones on an airplane, it's a great thing to help the body adjust to a new time zone. Yeah. So, but it helps in a number of ways. I mean, if I talk about, and I have a nice, cute little image around
Which
it.
we can find on your website.
Yes.
And I'll link it. Yeah.
The information on that is on the website and some on my YouTube. But yeah, if I talk about organs, it's stomach and spleen, kidney and bladder, liver and gallbladder, lung and large intestine, heart and small intestine. Okay. So there's a lot of layers as to why just holding our fingers and breathing can be helpful.
It applies pressure, it applies warmth. There's so many things that I find it to be very helpful. I will sit when I'm about to go on stage somewhere if I'm anxious or nervous, and I will find myself doing that. In fact, sometimes I find myself rubbing a little bit, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think that in this day and age, some people might get offended by that, but if you ever see me doing that, I'm not having dirty thoughts. I'm probably a little anxious about something. That's what's happening.
That is so funny. Yeah. No, I've even heard of some who will just take it joint by joint and really...
Oh, joint by joint.
And really cleanse and clear the energetics that way.
Well, I've had headaches before, and I was told to grab in this area and massage in here, and it does help. Now, does it knock it out like a few ibuprofen? No. But it'll give just seconds of relief, and I feel like I can make it a little bit longer. So I found that to be very helpful in my own life. So this podcast talks a lot about aging and seniors. How do your services specifically help seniors?
Yeah. So I generally attract people that are above 50.
Okay.
Mainly because, by the time you're getting to that age, you're more aware of those aches and pains and going, I probably should do something about this.
Yeah.
And so it for that reason, it easily comes this way. But I also have worked with Parkinson's clients, especially in the beginning stages of any kind of tremor issue. This seems to really help the brain come back online on what's normal.
Okay.
And in the very, very early stages.
Right.
I've had people who Parkinson's normal, this kind of thing. And as soon as the treatment starts, within like 3-4 minutes, it's completely still. And they're able to get a little bit of a respite in the very early stages. That same client now is much further on the journey, and we're not having the same kind of experiences. Right. So, but then I have another tremor kind of client who it's just something within her family line. It's not Parkinson's. And I can tell when it's been too long between the sessions because I will see it much more prevalent in her body.
Oh, wow.
And because of stress and all of those kinds of things, it's
Yes,
showing up.
yeah.
But if we're having sessions fairly close, then it doesn't show up as much.
Great.
So those are some examples of various people. I've supported somebody who was in her 90s with urinary stuff.
I was literally just thinking about that, and we did not talk about this beforehand, so I wasn't gonna throw this at you, but now that you've brought it up, I was wondering about that. Incontinence issues.
Yeah.
I know some people have tried acupuncture for that.
Sure.
Someone in my family has tried that and has had great success with it.
Yeah.
So does it also work with acupressure if you're not about the needles?
Right. If you're not about the needles, this can be part of the plan to support. Pelvic health is a whole other realm of things, structural speaking. But definitely, I mean, any kind of kidney, so I say kidney, but when you're dealing with incontinence, it's kidney,
It's
bladder,
a
it's
lot of
water,
stuff,
it's
yeah.
water element. And so
Right.
easy thing to begin with, just to support the system, is to hold the index finger, because that relates to kidney, bladder, and water element.
So if you're having to run frequently to the potty,
Yeah.
could you
Yep.
potentially say, hey, I am going to try to stretch this out a little bit longer and hold your finger,
Yeah.
and maybe that helps? I don't know.
It doesn't cost anything, and it's easy.
Especially if you're in the car and you're not
Right.
quite where you can get somewhere. I
Right.
wonder if that, I'm going to try that.
Then play around with it and see what happens.
I sure will.
Yeah. I mean, it's no like lightning bolt of whatever, but it doesn't hurt, and it can definitely help.
Yeah, that's interesting. So interesting. So that's very practical even for those of us in our 50s who may have had children before.
All of that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So one of the questions here that you put is, what area of service do you suggest someone should look into first if they have no obvious signs of needing your service? Because maybe they're sitting there and thinking, I don't need any of that.
Yeah. I think living a human life is stressful.
Especially these days, I think.
Modern living is stressful.
Yeah.
And we have to find ways to dispense with that stress, one way or the other.
Yep.
This could definitely be a tool to support that. I definitely have clients who are just maintenance clients. They just come once a month because they know that life is stressful, and they just need their bodies to get a little tune up so that way they can continue and being as optimal as possible. Another analogy that I like to use is that when you have the cleaners come to your house, if you have that kind of experience, you don't leave them a week's worth of dishes in the kitchen sink. You do that daily maintenance to clean the sink.
Right.
So that way the cleaners can really do a deep clean on the rest of the house.
Right.
So it is with coming for body work for me, is that I'm the deep clean on the body. Doing the daily self-help, listening to the recordings that I offer my clients, the holding the fingers every single day. That's the dishes in the kitchen sink.
Gotcha.
Every night.
Okay. So, and you teach people how to do this. Do you have, I know one time you did like a whole seminar, and I feel like it was an hour or 3 hours long. Like, how long was that?
Last spring I did 90-minute classes. Yeah.
Are you
Locally.
doing anything like that again this year?
Ooh. I have not scheduled it.
Okay.
But it is definitely on my mind to do another one of those.
Ooh, okay.
That was a deep dive on this whole hand thing.
Okay.
And so we got into really studying each of them, and everybody got to draw their own hand and really make their own version and kind of make it a little more their own.
And just kind of understanding a little bit more, I think the older that I get, the more helpful it is. For example, I didn't realize you could do anything with your lymphatic system. I just thought it's there, it does a job, and maybe when you're young, it does do a job. But I realized as I got older, if you don't regularly massage it, it may not be working optimally. So learning things like that about my body and where I might be able to help myself has been so beneficial. So if you think you might be having a class, this won't come out right away. You'll have time to plan one, and we can include it in the notes.
That sounds great. Well, definitely check my website.
Yeah.
I definitely post information there whenever I've got things going, or if I've got a class coming up, I'll definitely post it on the social media as well. So
Awesome.
That's other places for people to look, because I'm on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and
I will
YouTube.
try to attach all those links. So this is my reminder to you to get me those links, because I don't even know all the things you're attached to, I don't think.
Okay.
So I will attach those when I post the video.
Sure.
But if someone wants to find someone like you and they don't live here, because a lot of people don't live here in Gainesville, Florida,
Right.
where can they find someone that practices
Similar.
like you do?
Yeah. So Jin Shin Jyutsu practitioners, so it's JINSHINJYUTSU, something like that. Right now, spelling. Jin Shin Jyutsu practitioners are worldwide.
Okay.
So that is really lovely. And they can... let's see. The best way would be to do a search for practitioners.
To Google it. Near
Google,
me.
near. There are a couple of, I think it's jsjinc.net.
That'll show you all
That'll show
of
you
them?
practitioners, and they've actually in transition. So there's another website with practitioners listed that are current.
Okay.
So that is an option for sure. There is a second option. Although I really focus on having an in-person practice, this is available as distance healing. So for those that have a really open mind, that is another possibility of doing distance healing work. Still working with me if they really choose. And doing a little differently from wherever they are. And in fact, during the pandemic is where I discovered that part of my
out of
practice. I actually worked on an acupuncturist in London.
That's crazy.
Yeah, she has this thing that happens with her veins, and she was going to a craniosacral therapist typically to have it managed, and then she couldn't, and so I was like, well, you want to try this? And so we did, and she's like, that's really wild and amazing. So all the way in London, and I just set it up as a Zoom, and I worked on her energetic body, and while I watched her body via the Zoom and had her laying down in her room, quiet and dark, and
that must be so hard, though, much harder than reading the body with your hands. I would imagine it's a challenge.
It's a different kind of dynamic for sure to have that, but that's why I like the video, so at least I can watch the body while I'm working. But that's definitely a little more of a leap of faith.
Yeah, I would say that would be, And it probably helped that that one was an acupuncturist, so she's also aware, and that might help too.
Yeah, it definitely was fun for her. I've worked on a few other people that way.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, but
and then another question that I had is this something that insurance covers?
Unfortunately, no.
No, but what I understand is that it is not an arm and a leg. It is a reasonable amount, and I think you're cash only right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, I do take checks, and a few Venmo works. So those things I'm working on getting a credit card reader, but it takes a while to get all of those things
lined up. I know
when you're just a solo practitioner. So unfortunately, insurance is as a massage therapist, I could probably swing some codes, but I didn't feel that was authentic for me.
Right. And that may change as time goes on, but for right now, it is a cash only thing. And at some point, if you do get credit card, I think you could use HSA.
Probably.
So,
Yeah.
so there's that thought in mind for, down the road, if you get that in order, maybe HSA would work out for some people too.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. Yeah, it is definitely top of mind to get that sorted.
Okay.
So hopefully soon.
But I mean, I've chatted with other people, and it seems quite reasonable for what you're walking away with. So
Yeah, and I've also created packages. So
okay.
So yeah, somebody can come for an initial session and then decide. Usually, I have a free consult, and during that free consult, I'll let them know, like, well, based on what you're saying, either we're a good fit or we're not, and here I recommend somebody else,
Awesome.
or you're facing this particular challenge. If it's a big challenge, then you may want to consider the packages, and here are the packages, and you don't have to commit until you've had your first session, and by the end of it, decide which way you want to just pay for the one session or pay for a package. And so the package comes with, yes, the body work, but it also comes with the recordings. And I also do a medical astrology analysis on my clients.
Okay.
That is also a little bit more out there, I suppose. I use it a bit as a diagnostic tool for myself, but also as a 2-page document that I give my clients of very specific Jin Shin Jyutsu acupressure self-help that they can do for themselves based on their unique blend.
That is so interesting. I mean, I remember my mother was a nurse once upon a time, and she would say in the full moon, more things happened. And so when you think about that, it makes sense that maybe the moon and the stars and the sun and the way it's all aligned is going to have an effect on our body.
Yeah.
So, oh, that's all very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's yes. I mean, also a reason why astrology has stuck around for millennia.
Yes, exactly.
Is that there's something to it. I don't necessarily use it as predictive on Tuesday at 11 a.m. Blah, blah, blah is going to happen.
Right.
But it's more that it's recognizing patterns. And seeing those patterns and how it affects us and noticing that over time is what I feel like astrology is more about.
So cool.
And so for me, as a Jin Shin Jyutsu practitioner, Jin Shin Jyutsu is a lot about the relationships between the body, within the body, between a number of things. And I'm always looking at, are those relationships nice and smooth and healthy, or do we need to support them a little bit?
Right. Oh, such a great thing. So we need to wrap up because I could talk about this for a long time.
Thank you.
Is there anything in particular that you just really think you'd like to leave us with?
Oh, my goodness. Wow. I feel like I had a really great answer to this, and now it's not coming to me. But I think be open. You never know what kind of things can shift in your experience of life, whether it's on the physical or on the mental realm. And there's an opportunity here. Try out the finger and see how that plays out in your life, and see if you start noticing changes. And it may not be, for me, as I mentioned in my early story of how I came to it, it was a very rapid change. But for most people, it's a subtle over time experience in shifting their health. And this is a great complement to the other things that you may be doing. It's not going to interfere with the mainstream medical paradigm. It's only going to support those outcomes. Right,
because you can still take your medication. So whatever your doctor has prescribed, it's not going to interfere. And I think that's very important in this day where you've got so many specialists that are trying to tack medications on top of other medications, and they don't coordinate together and all that. That whole world.
Right.
This is not going to interfere in any way. So I appreciate your coming here. This has been a lot of fun. And if you out there listening and watching have not liked this podcast yet, I would ask you to like it, to subscribe, and to share it. And also comment if you would. If you've made it to the end, I would love to hear, have you tried acupuncture? Have you tried acupressure? Have you tried something along these lines that has made a difference in your life? For example, I've been doing the finger thing for the last couple years, and it really does help me. So make sure to comment and share. I love to read your comments. Thanks. Thanks so much.
Thank you.